The warning beacons had been there for thousands of years. They floated in the darkness of space, marking the boundaries of the forbidden sector. Every known civilization in the galaxy had added their own warnings to the ancient signals. Stay away, do not enter. Death awaits inside. Commander Thelxa had never questioned these warnings before. Her species, the Vrexians, were known for following rules and respecting ancient wisdom. But today her scanner showed something impossible. Inside the forbidden sector where nothing should exist, there was a ship. Run the scan again, she ordered, her forearms tapping nervously on the control panel. Her compound eyes focused on the display screen, hoping the reading was wrong. The junior officer obeyed. The result came back the same. A ship, definitely a ship, and the signature was unmistakable. Commander, the officer said slowly, the database identifies it as human design. Thelxa felt a chill run through her exoskeleton. Humans were one of the youngest species in the Galactic Council. They had only discovered faster-than-light travel 200 years ago. They were enthusiastic, creative, and sometimes reckless, but they were still learning the basic rules of galactic society. That makes no sense, Thelxa said. Humans would never enter the forbidden sector. They may be bold, but they are not suicidal. She sent an emergency transmission to the Galactic Council headquarters. Within hours, the council chamber on the neutral station of Convergence Point was filled with representatives from dozens of species. The holographic display showed the scan results, and the room erupted into chaos. Impossible, shouted Ambassador Krevnor, a massive Dralthic warrior whose species valued strength and honor above all else. Humans have only been in space for a fraction of a solar cycle. How could one of their ships be in the forbidden sector? The human ambassador, a small woman named Ambassador Torres, looked genuinely confused. We have no missions in that sector. We respect the ancient warnings. All our ships are accounted for. The council argued for 3 days. Finally, they made a decision that broke thousands of years of protocol. They would send an expedition into the forbidden sector to investigate. The risk was enormous, but the mystery was too dangerous to ignore. Thelxa was chosen to lead the mission. She selected a small team of specialists from different species. Among them was Dr. Sarah Chen, a human xenoarchaeologist who had spent her career studying ancient civilizations. Chen had black hair pulled back in a tight bun, and eyes that showed both excitement and fear. I never thought I would see this day, Chen said as they prepared the expedition ship. The forbidden sector has been my obsession since I was a child, and now we are going inside. Krevnor joined the team as security officer. He stood over 7 feet tall with thick armor-like skin and arms that could bend steel. I do not trust this mission, he rumbled. The forbidden sector earned its name for a reason. But if humans are involved, we must know the truth. The expedition ship crossed the warning beacons 3 weeks later. Every crew member felt the weight of what they were doing. They were violating the oldest law in known space. As they entered the sector, their instruments went crazy. Space itself seemed wrong here. Readings fluctuated wildly. The stars looked distorted as if viewed through warped glass. There, Thelxa pointed at the main display. Dead ahead, the ship appeared on their screens. It was enormous, easily 3 times the size of their expedition vessel. The design was clearly human, with the distinctive smooth lines and efficient structure that marked human engineering. But something was wrong about it. Running age analysis, Chen said, her fingers flying over the console. She stopped. Her face went pale. This cannot be right. What is it? Thelxa asked. According to carbon dating and material decay analysis, this ship has been here for at least 3,000 years. Chen looked up, her eyes wide with shock. 3,000 years ago, humans had not even invented basic electricity. They were still fighting with swords and arrows on their homeworld. The crew fell silent. The impossibility of it was overwhelming. As they drew closer, they could read the name painted on the hull in faded letters, the Prometheus Initiative. The ship was dark and dead, floating like a tomb in the void. But it was covered in symbols and markings that made Chen gasp. Those symbols, she whispered. They are proto-human, languages that existed on Earth thousands of years before recorded history, languages we only know from fragments and guesses. Thelxa brought their ship alongside the derelict vessel. They prepared to dock and board. As they did, their communication officer suddenly called out, "Commander, I am picking up a signal from the ship. That is impossible. The ship is dead. Nevertheless, there is a signal. A repeating transmission. The officer played it over the speakers. What they heard made no sense. It was a mixture of sounds, mathematical sequences, and fragments of languages that should not exist. The pattern repeated over and over, endless and unchanging. Chen listened carefully, her training as a xenoarchaeologist helping her pick out patterns. "It is a black box transmission," she said, like a message in a bottle. "It has been broadcasting for thousands of years, waiting for someone to find it." "Can you decode it?" Thelxa asked. "Some of it. The mathematical parts are universal. They are coordinates, I think, and warnings." "Lots of warnings." Chen paused, listening more carefully. "And something else. A phrase that keeps repeating in multiple dead languages." "What does it say?" Chen translated slowly, her voice barely a whisper. "We came from tomorrow. Forgive us. Remember us. Beware what follows." Krevner growled low in his throat. "I do not like this. I do not like this at all." But it was too late to turn back. The airlocks were connecting. They were about to board a ship that should not exist, from a species that should not have been capable of building it, carrying a message from an impossible past. Thelxa sealed her environmental suit and checked her equipment one final time. "Whatever we find in there," she said to her team, "the galaxy will never be the same." The airlock opened with a hiss. Beyond it lay darkness and secrets that had waited 3,000 years to be discovered. The interior of the Prometheus Initiative smelled of cold metal and stale air. Emergency lights flickered to life as the boarding team entered, activated by sensors that somehow still worked after 3,000 years. The lights cast long shadows down corridors that seemed to stretch farther than they should. Dr. Sarah Chen was the first to notice something wrong. "Commander Thelxa, are you seeing this?" "Seeing what?" The Vrexian commander asked, her suit sensors scanning for threats. "The dimensions. According to our external scans, this corridor should end in 50 meters, but I can see at least 200 meters ahead." Chen pulled out her handheld scanner. "Space inside this ship does not match space outside." Krevnor grunted. "Human technology should not be capable of this. Even our most advanced species cannot bend space like this." They moved deeper into the ship. Every step felt wrong. The gravity shifted unpredictably, sometimes pulling them to the floor, sometimes making them feel weightless for a few seconds. The corridor walls were covered in more of those ancient symbols, glowing faintly with their own light. "These symbols are not just decoration," Chen said, stopping to examine them closely. "They are mathematical formulas. Equations I have never seen before. They are describing something about space-time folding." Thelxa's compound eyes studied the symbols. If humans built this ship, they had knowledge far beyond what the Galactic Council possesses even now. How is that possible? They found the first body in a side corridor. It was human, wearing a uniform that had somehow not decayed. The body was perfectly preserved, frozen in time. Chen knelt beside it carefully. "Female, maybe 30 years old when she died," Chen said, studying the body with her medical scanner. "But look at this." She pointed to several features. "The bone density is incredible. Muscle structure far more developed than any human I have ever seen. Her lungs are larger. Her heart is modified." "Modified how?" Krevner asked, leaning in. "Like she was designed to survive in extreme conditions. High gravity, low oxygen, extreme temperatures. No planet in charted space has these conditions." Chen looked up at her companions. "This woman is human, but she is different from any human alive today." They found more bodies as they explored. All were similarly modified, all perfectly preserved. The ship felt more like a tomb with every corridor they passed. The main cryostasis bay was enormous. Hundreds of pods lined the walls, each containing a sleeping human. The pods were still active, their displays showing steady life signs despite the thousands of years that had passed. "This is impossible," Thelxa breathed. "No cryostasis technology can maintain life for this long." Chen moved from pod to pod, checking the displays. Each one showed vital signs, stable and unchanging. These people are not just frozen. They are held in some kind of temporal stasis. Time is not passing for them at all. She stopped at one pod and gasped. The display showed detailed biological information. These modifications. These people were engineered for war. For survival in conditions that would kill anyone else. They are soldiers. Krevnor studied the sleeping warriors with respect. "I have seen many warriors from many species. But these humans were built for combat beyond anything I know. What war were they fighting?" A computer terminal near the cryo bay flickered to life as they approached. Chen sat down and began accessing the ship's logs. The language was human but ancient. She had to use her translation software to decode it. "The ship's logs are damaged, but I can recover some entries," she said, her eyes scanning the screen rapidly. They mentioned something called the seeding protocol. References to timeline anchor points. They talk about preventing something called the convergence. "What is the convergence?" Thelxa asked. "I do not know." But they were terrified of it. Chen pulled up more files. "Here, a fragment from the captain's log. We have successfully traveled backward. The calculations were correct. We arrived 3,000 years before the war begins. We will hide in the forbidden sector until the time comes. Our mission is clear. Seed humanity across the timeline to ensure our survival." "Traveled backward?" Krevnor repeated. "Backward through time?" "That is what it says." Chen continued reading. They were not exploring space. They were exploring time. This ship did not come from human space. It came from human future. The implications were staggering. Every member of the boarding team felt the weight of this discovery. Humans were not a young species learning to walk among the stars. They were refugees from a war that had not happened yet. Chen accessed another file. This one showed weapons specifications. The more she read, the paler she became. "The weapons bay. We need to see the weapons bay." They found it on the lower decks. The bay was massive, filled with weapons that looked both familiar and alien. Chen recognized human design principles, but the technology was far beyond anything humanity currently possessed. "These are not just guns," Krevnor said, examining a rifle-like weapon. "These are reality-breaking tools. This weapon does not shoot projectiles. It shoots compressed probability fields." "And this one," Thelxa said, pointing to another device, "appears to manipulate quantum states at a distance, a weapon that could unmake matter itself." Chen found a console and accessed the weapons database. According to these files, these weapons were standard infantry equipment. Not experimental. Not special forces standard. "Future humans fought with technology that makes gods seem weak," Krevnor said quietly. "What enemy required such weapons?" They found partial files describing the enemy. Something that existed outside normal space and time. Something that consumed entire realities. The files were corrupted, but the fear in the writing was clear. Chen was about to access another file when Thelxa called out from across the bay. "Everyone, come here now." They gathered around a cryopod that stood separate from the others. The pod was open, empty, but unlike the other equipment, this pod showed recent activity. "According to these readings," Thelxa said, studying the display, "this pod was opened 6 days ago." Silence fell over the team. They looked at each other, the realization slowly dawning. "Someone is alive on this ship," Chen whispered. Krevnor immediately went on alert, his weapons ready. "Where are they?" Thelxa scanned the area. There, footprints in the dust, leading deeper into the ship. The footprints were human-sized. They led away from the cryo bay, down a corridor that descended into the heart of the vessel. The trail was fresh. Whoever had left that pod was moving through the ship, awake and active. "Should we follow?" Chen asked, though she already knew the answer. "We have no choice," Thelxa replied. "We need to know who they are and what they are doing." They followed the footprints. The trail led them through corridors that became stranger and stranger. The walls pulsed with that same faint light. The gravity became almost non-existent. They were approaching the core of the ship. Finally, the footprints led to a massive door. It was sealed, but the access panel showed recent use. Someone had opened this door just hours before. On the door was writing in multiple languages, all saying the same thing. "Core access. Authorized personnel only. Timeline preservation protocols in effect." Krevnor looked at his companions. "Whatever is behind this door, it is the heart of the ship's secrets." Chen placed her hand on the access panel. It scanned her palm, and surprisingly, the door began to open with a deep grinding sound. "How did it accept you?" Thelxa asked. Chen stared at her hand. "I do not know, but I think this ship has been waiting for me." The door opened fully, revealing a chamber beyond. Inside, they could see a massive quantum computer, still running, its lights blinking in complex patterns. And standing before it, illuminated by the glow of 1,000 displays, was a figure. A human woman, very much alive, turned to face them. She smiled, but it was a sad smile. "Hello," she said in perfect galactic common language. "My name is Elena. I have been waiting a very long time for you to arrive. Elena looked human, but something about her was different. She moved with absolute confidence, and her eyes held the weight of years beyond counting. She wore a simple uniform identical to those on the preserved bodies they had found. But on her it looked alive, purposeful. "You followed the footprints," Elena said, not as a question but as a statement of fact. "Good, the ship's AI predicted you would. We have been waiting for the right people to find us." Dr. Sarah Chen stepped forward. "How are you alive?" "Those cryopods have been running for 3,000 years. Longer than that, actually," Elena replied. "I was not in cryostasis. I was in temporal suspension. A very different thing. Time has not touched me because I exist slightly outside of time." She gestured to the massive quantum computer behind her. "This is what has kept me alive. This is what has kept the ship hidden. And this is what will show you the truth." Commander Thelsa raised one of her forearms. "Before we see anything, you need to explain who you are and why you are here." Elena nodded. "Fair enough. I'm Lieutenant Commander Elena Vasquez, Tactical Officer of the Prometheus Initiative. I was 28 years old when we left on this mission. That was 3,147 years ago." She paused. "I am the last crew member on active duty. Everyone else is in the cryopods waiting." "Waiting for what?" Krevner demanded, his hand near his weapon. "For the war to begin again," Elena said simply, "or more accurately for it to begin for the first time. Time travel makes grammar difficult." She turned to the quantum computer and touched a panel. The entire chamber lit up with holographic displays. Images filled the air around them, showing star systems, timelines, and mathematical equations that hurt to look at. "Let me show you something that your Galactic Council does not know," Elena said. "Something humanity itself does not remember." A holographic figure appeared in the center of the room. It was a man in his 50s wearing a captain's uniform. His face was tired but determined. "This is Captain Marcus Chen," Elena said. Sarah Chen gasped. "Chen, like my family name?" Elena smiled at her. "Not a coincidence, Dr. Chen, but let me play the message. The captain recorded this 3,000 years ago, but he addressed it to whoever would find us in the correct timeline." The hologram began to speak. His voice was strong and clear. "If you are watching this, then events have proceeded as we hoped. You have found the Prometheus Initiative. You have entered the Forbidden Sector, and you have questions that will shake the foundations of everything you believe." Captain Chen took a breath. "Let me tell you the truth about humanity. We did not evolve on Earth, we were placed there. The holographic display showed images of Earth, but wrong somehow. Different continents, different climate patterns. Humanity evolved on a planet called Origin, in a different part of the galaxy, in a timeline that no longer exists. We became a great civilization. We mastered physics, conquered disease, explored the stars. We built an empire that spanned galaxies." The captain's expression grew dark. "And then we discovered time travel, and that is when the war began. The display showed glimpses of impossible battles, ships that existed in multiple timelines at once, weapons that erased causes and effects, soldiers fighting enemies that had not been born yet. We fought an enemy called the Convergence," the captain continued. "It was not a species or a nation. It was something that existed across all possible timelines simultaneously. It consumed realities, fed on the collapse of possibility. We fought it for generations, and we lost. The images showed worlds dying, stars going dark, entire sections of space-time collapsing into nothingness. We faced a choice," Captain Chen said. "Let the Convergence consume all of existence or do something desperate. We chose desperation. We chose to erase ourselves." Thelsa spoke up, her voice shocked. "What do you mean, erase yourselves?" Elena paused the recording. "Exactly what he said. The original timeline where humanity evolved on Origin still exists, but it is doomed. The Convergence won there, so we took newborn human children and scattered them backward through time. We placed them on Earth, on dozens of other worlds, creating new timelines where humanity would evolve differently, slowly, naturally, without attracting the Convergence's attention." "You seeded your own species across time," Chen whispered. "Yes, the Prometheus Initiative was one of 12 seed ships. We carried frozen embryos, genetic material, and technology. We traveled back 3,000 years and placed humanity on Earth. We removed all genetic memory. We made sure your species would grow up not knowing what they truly were." Elena restarted the recording. Captain Chen continued speaking. "If you are watching this, then our plan worked. Humanity survived. You grew on Earth, you developed naturally. You became something new. something that the convergence would not recognize. He paused. But there is a problem. The convergence is not bound by linear time. Eventually it will find you. It will notice the similarities. It will come. The hologram looked directly at them, as if seeing across 3,000 years. The forbidden sector is not forbidden by ancient aliens. It is forbidden by us. We created this quarantine zone to hide our insertion point into your timeline. The warning beacons were placed by future humans to keep everyone away from the moment of our arrival. Because if anyone disturbed this moment, the entire timeline could collapse, Krevnor growled. Then we have already doomed you by coming here. No, Elena said. You coming here was always part of the plan. The captain knew that eventually, humanity would expand far enough to find us, and when that happened, it would mean the convergence was close. Chen felt cold. How close? Elena brought up new displays. They showed tiers in space-time at the edges of the forbidden sector. Reality itself was unraveling in small patches. Very close, Elena said quietly. These tiers appeared 6 months ago. That is when I woke up. The ship's AI detected the convergence's signature and activated my pod. I have been monitoring the situation since then. What is the convergence? Thelxa asked. What is it made of? That is the terrifying part, Elena replied. We never fully understood it. It exists outside normal physics. It feeds on collapsed timelines, on possibility that never happened. Some of our scientists thought it was an accidental creation. Others believed it was inevitable, a natural consequence of time travel. She looked at each of them. But what matters is that it is coming. And this time there are no more timelines to run to. Then what do we do? Chen asked. Very close, Elena said quietly. These tiers appeared 6 months ago. That is when I woke up. The ship's AI detected the convergence's signature and activated my pod. I have been monitoring the situation since then. What is the convergence? Thelxa asked. What is it made of? That is the terrifying part, Elena replied. We never fully understood it. It exists outside normal physics. It feeds on collapsed timelines, on possibility that never happened. Some of our scientists thought it was an accidental creation. Others believed it was inevitable, a natural consequence of time travel. She looked at each of them. But what matters is that it is coming. In this time there are no more timelines to run to. Then what do we do? Chen asked. Elena touched another panel. A schematic appeared, showing the Prometheus Initiative's core systems. The ship has a weapon, one last option, but using it requires a choice that no one should have to make. Krevnor studied the schematic. This is a temporal disruption device. If I am reading this correctly, it does not destroy enemies. It destroys timelines. Yes, Elena confirmed. It can sever a timeline from existence. Remove it from the web of possibility. Make it so that it never happened. The implications hung in the air like a weight. Chen spoke slowly. You are saying we could erase the timeline where the convergence exists? Theoretically, yes, Elena said. But that timeline is the original human timeline. The one where we evolved on origin. If we erase it, we erase our own beginning. We become a species with no origin point, a paradox existing in reality purely through quantum uncertainty. That is insane, Thelxa said. Yes, Elena agreed. But we are running out of options. The convergence has found you. Your modern human ships have started using technology similar to what original humanity used. You are calling attention to yourselves. Within months, maybe a year, the convergence will arrive in force. She looked at Dr. Chen with strange intensity. And that is why you are here, Sarah Chen, descendant of Captain Marcus Chen. Your family line was specifically preserved. Your career path, your obsession with the forbidden sector, none of it was random. You were bred across 3,000 years to be here in this moment, capable of making the choice. Chen felt her legs weaken. What choice? Whether to tell the galaxy the truth, Elena said. Whether to activate the weapon. Whether to save humanity by erasing our own past. She gestured to the cryopods in the distance. Everyone in those pods volunteered for this mission knowing they might never wake up. They gave up their entire timeline to give your version of humanity a chance. And now you are asking us to return the favor, Krevnor said grimly. Elena nodded. The convergence is coming. We need to decide what humanity is willing to sacrifice to survive. Again. The hologram of Captain Chen spoke one final time. To whoever finds this message. To my descendant, if our genetic planning worked, I am sorry. I am sorry we left you this burden. But I believe humans are survivors. We always have been. We always will be. Make the choice that lets humanity endure. That is all I ask. The hologram faded. The chamber fell silent except for the quiet hum of the quantum computer. Thelxa looked at her team. We need to report this to the Galactic Council immediately. That might be a mistake, Elena warned. If the Council learns what humanity truly is, they might choose to eliminate you rather than risk the Convergence's attention. She is right, Krevnor said reluctantly. Fear makes people dangerous. If the galaxy learns that humans attracted an enemy that eats timelines, they will not take chances. Chen stared at the schematic of the weapon. Her mind raced with the implications of everything they had learned. Humanity's entire existence was a lie, a beautiful, desperate lie told by people who loved their species enough to erase themselves. And now that lie was unraveling, and the truth was more terrifying than anyone could imagine. The expedition team stayed aboard the Prometheus Initiative for 3 more days. Elena showed them everything. The ship's complete logs, the genetic engineering plans that had shaped modern humanity, the evidence of battles fought across impossible fronts. With each revelation, the weight on their shoulders grew heavier. Dr. Sarah Chen spent hours in the ship's archive room, studying records of the civilization that humanity had once been. She saw images of cities that floated between dimensions, scientific achievements that made current galactic technology look primitive, art and culture from a species that had conquered death, disease, and distance. We were magnificent, Chen whispered, scrolling through the files. Our ancestors were truly magnificent. Elena stood beside her watching the displays. Yes, but magnificence attracted attention. The Convergence noticed us because we became too advanced. We burned too brightly. Tell me about the Convergence, Chen said. The captain's message did not explain what it actually is. Elena pulled up a series of scientific reports. Our best scientists studied it for decades. What we learned was terrifying. The Convergence is not alive in any traditional sense. It is more like a natural law of physics. When intelligent species develop certain technologies, particularly time travel and dimensional manipulation, they create ripples in space-time. The Convergence feeds on those ripples. So it is drawn to advanced civilizations, specifically to civilizations that break the rules of causality. Once you start changing timelines, creating paradoxes, folding dimensions, you light up like a beacon. The Convergence comes, and it does not destroy you. It does something worse. Chen looked at her. What could be worse than destruction? It collapses your timeline into probability foam. Everything your species ever did, every choice you ever made becomes uncertain. You exist in a state of quantum maybe, alive and dead simultaneously, real and unreal. Elena's voice was quiet. We found worlds like that. Entire civilizations trapped in probability loops, unable to fully exist or fully die. They're people living the same moments over and over, each time slightly different, never able to break free. Chen felt sick. That is horrible. Yes, so when we realized we could not defeat the Convergence, we chose something radical. We chose to become small again. Simple. We reset humanity too before we had dangerous technology. We hoped that if we grew slowly, naturally, we might develop differently, become something the Convergence would not recognize. Meanwhile, Commander Thelxa worked with Elena to analyze the current threat level. They stood in the observation deck, watching the displays that showed reality tiers forming at the sector's boundaries. How long before the Convergence fully arrives? Thelxa asked. Difficult to say exactly, Elena replied. Time does not work normally around the Convergence, but based on the expansion rate of these tiers, I estimate we have between 8 months and 1 year before it can manifest physically in this dimension. What happens when it arrives? Elena pulled up a simulation. It showed a wave spreading out from the forbidden sector, consuming everything it touched. Stars went dark, planets dissolved, entire star systems became probability ghosts. It will start here at the insertion point where we change the timeline. Then it will spread. The Convergence will try to collapse the entire human timeline branch. Every world humanity has touched, every species you have contacted, every choice your civilization has made will be unmade. Thelxa felt fear, a rare emotion for her logical species. The entire Galactic Council would be affected. Yes, by seeding humanity in this timeline, we connected your existence to ours. If the Convergence collapses humanity, it will take portions of everyone else with it. The damage will be catastrophic. Then we must tell the Council. They need to prepare. Elena shook her head. Prepare how? The convergence cannot be fought with conventional weapons. We tried that. We had weapons that could destroy stars and it did nothing. The convergence exists outside the rules we can manipulate. In another part of the ship, Krevnor explored the weapons bay more thoroughly. He had brought up detailed specifications on the arsenal, and what he read both impressed and disturbed him. One weapon caught his attention, a rifle that fired rounds phased across 7 dimensions simultaneously. The specifications claimed it could hit targets that had not yet arrived in normal space. Another device could create localized time loops, trapping enemies in seconds that repeated forever. These are not weapons, Krevnor muttered to himself. These are nightmares made manifest. He heard footsteps and turned to see Elena approaching. You understand them, Elena said. It was not a question. I am a warrior. I understand weapons, but these are beyond warfare as I know it. Krevnor gestured to the arsenal. These were made by people who had stopped thinking about enemies as living beings. These are tools for erasing problems from existence itself. You are right. By the end, we were not fighting a war. We were fighting against the concept of our enemy existing. We became what we hated. Elena looked at the weapons with sadness. That is another reason we chose to reset. We had become monsters in our desperation to survive. Krevnor studied her. You speak of this with regret, but you still serve. Why? Because monsters or not, we were trying to save everyone, not just humanity. The convergence does not care about species or morality. It consumes everything. Elena met his gaze. I stayed awake to finish the mission, to give new humanity a chance to do better than we did. And if new humanity makes the same mistakes, then at least we tried. On the 4th day, the team gathered in the command center to make their decision. They had to determine what to tell the Galactic Council and what to do about the threat. Chen spoke first. We have 3 options. 1, we tell the Council everything and hope they help us. 2, we hide the truth and try to deal with the convergence ourselves. 3, we activate the temporal weapon and attempt to erase the original human timeline. Option 1 will cause panic, Thelxa said. The Council will fracture. Some species will want to help. Others will demand we eliminate all humans immediately to save themselves. Option 2 leaves us unprepared, Krevnor added. The convergence is beyond our ability to fight. Hiding the truth just delays the inevitable. And option 3 is genocide, Chen said quietly. Erasing the original timeline means killing trillions of people. People who existed, who had lives and loves and dreams. We would be murderers on a scale never seen before. Elena listened to them debate. Finally, she spoke. There is a 4th option, one that the original Prometheus crew prepared for but hoped would never be needed. They turned to her. The temporal weapon can do more than erase timelines. It can also merge them. Take 2 separate timelines and fold them together, combining their histories. Elena pulled up a schematic. If we merge the original human timeline with this one, we create a single, stronger timeline. The convergence tracks individual branches, but a merged timeline might be too complex for it to fully grasp. What would happen to the people? Chen asked. Memories would merge. The humans sleeping in the cryopods would wake in this timeline with their knowledge and skills intact. Modern humanity would suddenly remember a past they never lived. It would be chaos, but everyone would survive. And the convergence? Thelxa asked. Uncertain. It might be confused enough to give us time, or it might consume both timelines at once. This is not a perfect solution. They fell silent, each considering the options. Finally, Krevnor spoke. I have fought in many battles. I have seen warriors face impossible odds. The humans I know, the modern humans, they are young and inexperienced. But they have something. He looked at Elena. They have hope, something your timeline lost. What are you suggesting? Elena asked. I suggest we tell humanity the truth, all of it. Let them decide their own fate. Krevnor straightened. Warriors deserve to know what they are fighting for. If humans are truly descended from the greatest civilization in history, they deserve to know. And they deserve the chance to prove they can do better. Chen nodded slowly. He is right. We cannot make this choice for an entire species. Thelxa was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, Very well. We will return to the council. We will tell them what we found, and we will let humanity decide how to face what is coming. Elena looked at them, and for the first time since they had met her, She smiled with genuine warmth. Captain Chen would be proud of you. All of you. As they prepared to leave the ship, Elena stopped Chen. Sarah Chen, before you go, I need you to understand something. Your great ancestor, Captain Marcus Chen, he encoded instructions in your family's genetic line. You have abilities you have not discovered yet. Enhanced pattern recognition, immunity to temporal paradox effects, mental shielding against probability manipulation. Why? Chen asked. Because someone needs to pilot the Prometheus initiative if we use the weapon. Someone immune to the side effects of timeline manipulation, someone who can navigate probability without losing themselves. Elena placed a hand on Chen's shoulder. You were bred to be a weapon against the convergence, just like this ship. Not because we wanted to burden you, but because we loved humanity enough to give future generations every possible advantage. Chen felt the weight of 3,000 years of planning pressing down on her. What if I am not strong enough? Then you will fail and humanity will end. But I do not think you will fail. I have maintained this ship for 3,000 years waiting for you. I believe you are exactly who we need. The expedition team returned to their ship. As they pulled away from the Prometheus initiative, Chen looked back at the ancient vessel floating in the forbidden darkness. Elena stood in one of the observation windows watching them leave. She raised her hand in farewell. Behind the Prometheus initiative, the tears in reality grew larger. The convergence was coming, and for the first time in 3,000 years, humanity would have to face the nightmare that their ancestors had fled. But this time they would face it together, old humanity and new, with all the galaxy watching, and with Elena's words echoing in their minds. We were magnificent once. Perhaps you can be magnificent again. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so full. Every species, every colony world, every minor faction had sent representatives. Word of the discovery had spread despite attempts to keep it quiet. Everyone knew something terrible had been found in the forbidden sector. Commander Thelxa stood at the central podium, her forearms steady despite her nervousness. Beside her stood Dr. Sarah Chen and Krevnor. Behind them, on the massive display screens, was a live feed from the Prometheus initiative. Elena stood on the bridge of the ancient ship ready to corroborate their story. Members of the council, Thelxa began, what we are about to tell you will challenge everything you believe about humanity and about the nature of our reality. For the next 3 hours, they presented their findings. They showed the ship's logs, the genetic evidence, the timeline maps. They explained how humanity had not evolved naturally on Earth, but had been planted there by time travelers from a doomed future. They showed images of the original human civilization and its terrible war against the convergence. The council erupted into chaos. Accusations flew. Some species demanded humans be expelled from the galaxy immediately. Others called for humanity's extinction to prevent the convergence from finding them. A few stood in support, arguing that humanity deserved a chance to survive. Ambassador Torres, the human representative, stood silent through it all. Her face was pale, processing the revelation that her entire species was built on a lie. Finally, the head of the council, a wise and ancient Zelthari named Supreme Arbiter Morn, called for order. His crystalline form pulsed with light as he spoke. This is unprecedented, Morn said, his voice resonating through the chamber. But accusations and panic solve nothing. Dr. Chen, you stated that the convergence is already approaching. Show us the evidence. Chen activated new displays. The screen showed real-time sensor data from the forbidden sector. The tears in reality had grown significantly in just the past week. They now spread like cracks in glass, fragmenting space-time itself. This is happening now, Chen said. Our estimates suggest we have less than 6 months before the convergence can fully manifest in our dimension. When it does, it will attempt to collapse the human timeline. And because humanity has integrated with galactic society, that collapse will damage everyone's timelines. A Vrexian scientist spoke up. How is that possible? Our timelines existed before humanity joined the council. Timelines are not isolated, Elena explained from the screen. They branch and interweave. When humans made first contact with other species, your timelines became connected. Choices you made because of human interaction, technologies you developed from human ideas, children born from mixed species relationships, all of these create connections. If humanity's timeline collapses, those connections will try to unmake themselves. Reality will fracture trying to maintain consistency. Krevnor stepped forward. I have reviewed the tactical data. The convergence cannot be fought with conventional weapons. We cannot evacuate from it. We cannot negotiate with it. It is a force of nature like gravity or entropy. The original humans fought it for generations with technology far beyond ours, and they lost. Then what do you propose? Asked a Dralthic general, Krevnor's own species leader. That we simply wait for extinction? No, Chen said. We propose using the weapon aboard the Prometheus initiative. The temporal disruption device, she explained the options. Erase the original timeline and become a paradox species. Merge the timelines and create something the convergence might not recognize. Or attempt a third option that Elena had revealed to them during the return journey. There is one more possibility, Elena said from the screen. The weapon can be used to sever our section of space-time from the greater quantum foam. Isolate us completely. The convergence feeds on connections between timelines. If we cut all connections, it cannot reach us. What would that mean? Arbiter Morn asked. It would mean no more time travel, no more dimensional manipulation, no more accessing alternate timelines. We would be locked into one single stream of causality forever. Elena's face was grim. It would also mean abandoning the original human timeline to its fate. Everyone there, all those people, would die when the convergence consumes them. The council chamber fell into stunned silence. They were being asked to make a choice that would define the future of all galactic civilization. Ambassador Torres finally spoke, her voice shaking. You are asking us to choose between killing trillions of our own ancestors or potentially dooming everyone to the same fate. Yes, Elena said simply. That is exactly what I am asking. Because those are the only choices left. Over the next week, humanity itself debated. The revelation of their true origin had spread across every human world. Some people celebrated the discovery that humanity had once been a great civilization. Others were horrified by the deception. Religious leaders struggled to reconcile their beliefs with the timeline manipulation, but slowly, a consensus emerged. Humans, by nature, were survivors. They had survived the original war by being willing to forget who they were. Now they needed to survive by remembering. Dr. Chen worked with Elena to prepare the Prometheus initiative for its final mission. They would need to wake the crew from cryostasis. 347 original humans, warriors, and scientists from the lost timeline would join the modern galaxy. The day came when the first pods opened. Chen watched as the ancient soldiers emerged, their eyes taking in a world they had never seen. They had volunteered for this mission knowing they might never wake. Now they faced a reality where their sacrifice had created a new humanity that did not know it needed saving. One of the first to wake was a woman named Commander Arya Volkov, the Prometheus's second in command. She looked at Elena with tears in her eyes. You stayed awake, Arya said, all this time. You kept watch. Someone had to, Elena replied. Welcome to the future. It needs saving again. As more crew members woke, they were briefed on the situation. Many were shocked by how young and hopeful modern humanity seemed. Others were saddened by how much knowledge had been lost. But all of them understood their duty. Meanwhile, the Galactic Council made its decision. With humans abstaining from the vote, the Council voted to support the severance option. They would cut all connections to alternate timelines and lock reality into a single causality stream. It was the safest option, even if it meant abandoning the original timeline. But Chen had other ideas. She had spent days studying the genetic modifications her ancestors had made to her family line. She had discovered abilities she never knew she had. The capacity to navigate probability, the mental discipline to maintain coherence across timeline shifts. She was, as Elena had said, bred to be a weapon. The night before the weapon was to be activated, Chen went to see Elena privately aboard the Prometheus. I want to try the merge option, Chen said. Elena shook her head. The council decided. Severance is safer but wrong. The original timeline has billions of people. They are still fighting, still trying to survive. We owe them a chance. Chen met Elena's eyes. You have protected this ship for 3,000 years. Let me protect them now. The merge could fail. It could kill everyone in both timelines. Yes, but it could also work. And if it works, humanity becomes whole again. We become strong enough to face anything. Chen placed her hand on the console. I have the genetic modifications. I can pilot the ship through the merge. You know I can. Elena was quiet for a long time. Then she said, Captain Chen would be proud of you. and probably furious that his descendant is as reckless as he was. Is that a yes? That is a yes. But we do it my way. I pilot, you navigate, we do this together. The next day, Chen stood before the Galactic Council and told them of the change in plans. The chamber erupted in protest. They accused her of risking everything for sentiment, of choosing ancestors over the living. But then Krevnor stood. I stand with Chen. Warriors do not abandon their brothers. If original humanity is still fighting, they deserve our help. Thelsa rose next. I stand with Chen, she is correct. Severance is survival. But survival without honor is not worth the cost. One by one, others stood. Not all humans. Not even a majority. But enough. Representatives from a dozen species rose to support the more dangerous option. Arbiter Morn watched the chamber. Finally, he spoke. Very well. We will attempt the merge. But Dr. Chen, if this fails, there will be no one left to learn from our mistake. Then we had better succeed, Chen replied. The Prometheus initiative began its final mission 1 week later. Chen and Elena sat in the pilot seats with Arya and the awakened crew manning the stations. The ship's temporal drive powered up, drawing energy from the quantum foam of reality itself. Outside, the tiers in spacetime had grown massive. The convergence was visible now. A darkness that was not darkness. A presence that hurt to perceive. It moved like oil spreading across water, consuming everything it touched. Beginning timeline merge, Elena announced. Engaging temporal field, the ship began to glow. Reality around it warped and twisted. Chen closed her eyes and opened her mind to the probability streams. She could feel both timelines now. The original dying in the convergence's embrace. The new young and hopeful. She reached out and began to pull them together. The merge was not gentle. Memories collided. Histories rewrote themselves in real time. Across human space, billions of people suddenly remembered two different pasts. They remembered Earth as a peaceful development and Earth as a refugee settlement. They remembered ancestors who had evolved naturally, and ancestors who had fled across time. The cognitive dissonance was overwhelming. People screamed, fainted. Some went mad from the paradox. But Chen held on. She navigated the probability streams, finding paths where both timelines could coexist, where the contradiction became a strength instead of a weakness. In the original timeline, the last humans fighting the convergence suddenly felt hope. They felt connection to something beyond their doomed existence. They felt their timeline merging with another, and they added their strength to it. The convergence sensed the merge and tried to stop it. It pushed against the forming bridge between timelines. Reality screamed. Stars flickered. Planets phased in and out of existence. It is fighting us, Elena shouted over the alarms. The convergence knows what we are doing. Then we fight harder, Chen replied. She pushed deeper into the merge, accepting pain that felt like her brain was being torn apart. In the council chamber, Arbiter Morn and the others watched the displays in horror and awe. They could see both timelines struggling to become one. They could see the convergence trying to prevent it. And then in a moment that would be remembered forever, they saw the merge complete. The two timelines collapsed into one, not erased, not destroyed, combined. Every human suddenly had two sets of memories, two histories, two paths that had led to the same present. And more importantly, they had the knowledge. 3,000 years of advanced technology. Strategies for fighting the convergence. Weapons that could wound probability itself. Humanity transformed in an instant from a young species to a civilization that remembered its own future. The convergence recoiled. It had been tracking a simple timeline. Now it faced something complex, paradoxical, impossible. A species that had evolved naturally and had been seeded artificially. A civilization that was both new and ancient. The contradiction confused it. And in that confusion, humanity struck. The awakened original humans knew the convergence's weaknesses. They had spent generations learning how to hurt something that existed outside causality. Now they taught modern humanity those lessons. Every human ship in the galaxy suddenly upgraded their weapons, modified their engines, changed their tactics. The convergence tried to advance, but humanity pushed back, not with traditional warfare, but with probability manipulation. They created timelines where the convergence had never existed and forced those timelines to become real. It was warfare on a level the galaxy had never seen. And humanity, impossible humanity, paradox humanity, was winning. Chen woke 3 days later in a medical bay. Elena sat beside her bed, looking older somehow despite her temporal suspension. "Did we win?" Chen asked. We are winning, Elena corrected. The convergence is retreating. It cannot fully process what humanity has become. We have bought ourselves time. How much time? Enough, maybe generations. Maybe forever. Elena smiled. You did it, Sarah Chen. You saved 2 humanities. And you scared the convergence, something we thought was impossible. Chen sat up slowly. What happens now? Now we teach. Now we prepare. Now we make sure that if the convergence ever returns, we are ready. Elena handed her a data pad. The council wants to meet with you. They want to understand what humanity has become. What have we become? Terrifying, Elena said with pride. Humans were always good at survival. But now you are a species that survived by erasing yourselves and then brought yourselves back. You died and came back stronger. That is the most frightening thing in the universe. Chen looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there the convergence licked its wounds. And somewhere humanity, both old and new, prepared for the next battle. The warning beacons around the forbidden sector changed their message. No longer did they say stay away. Now they said something different in every language known. They were here. They saved us. They came from tomorrow and yesterday. They are human. They are terrifying. They are hope. Remember them, respect them, and pray you never have to fight them. Because the galaxy had learned a truth that would echo through history. Humanity at its best was inspiring, but humanity when threatened, humanity with nothing left to lose, humanity fighting for survival across time itself, was the most dangerous force in all of creation. And the most terrifying part was not what they had done. It was knowing they would do it again if they had to. Without hesitation, without regret. Because that was what humans did. They survived. No matter the cost. No matter the odds. They survived. And now the entire universe knew it.
The morning sky over Earth was clear and blue, just like any other day. Then everything changed. Captain James Walker stood in the control room of the United Earth Defense Force headquarters, his coffee mug frozen halfway to his lips. On the main screen, a massive object had appeared in Earth's orbit. It wasn't there 5 minutes ago. What the hell is that? He asked, setting down his mug. Lieutenant Anna Miller typed rapidly at her console. Sir, it just appeared. No approach vector, no warning. 1 second nothing was there. The next second, this. The object was clearly a warship, even to untrained eyes. Its shape spoke of power and battle. It stretched nearly a mile long with sharp angles and weapon ports visible along its dark hull. It looked human in design, but far more advanced than anything Earth had built. Any signals? Walker asked, his voice steady despite the pounding in his chest. None, sir, Miller replied. It's just sitting there. The red emergency phone rang. Walker picked it up, knowing it would be General Thompson, his commanding officer. Walker, are you seeing this? Thompson's voice was tight with tension. Yes, sir. We have no idea what it is or where it came from. The Security Council is meeting in 30 minutes. Every major military power on Earth is pointing everything they have at that ship. I need you to figure out what it is before someone panics and starts World War III. Walker took a deep breath. Understood, sir. Within minutes, the Earth's response was in full swing. Fighter jets scrambled worldwide. Missile systems activated. Space telescopes redirected. And Captain James Walker found himself in charge of first contact. Try all frequencies again, he ordered. If that thing wants to talk, we need to listen. For 2 hours, they sent messages and received nothing. The strange ship just hung in orbit, silent and still. Then, just as Walker was about to report back to the Security Council, every screen in the control room flickered. Hello, Earth. The voice came through crystal clear on all channels simultaneously. It sounded human, male, with a slight accent that Walker couldn't place. I apologize for the dramatic entrance. Walker leaned forward. This is Captain James Walker of the United Earth Defense Force. Identify yourself. There was a pause, then. I am Atlas, the Artificial Intelligence Command System of the UES Defiant. United Earth Ship Defiant. Murmurs spread through the control room. United Earth Ship. We didn't have United Earth ships. There is no such vessel in our registry, Walker said carefully. That is correct, Captain Walker. The Defiant does not exist in your time. I am from approximately 300 years in your future. The room fell silent. Walker exchanged glances with Lieutenant Miller, whose eyes had grown wide. You're claiming to be from the future? Walker asked, skepticism clear in his voice. I understand your doubt. If you look at your satellite feed, I will provide visual confirmation of my identity. On the main screen, the image zoomed in on the hull of the massive ship. Clear markings became visible, UES Defiant, and below it, the Earth Defense Force logo, similar to their own, but more stylized, more advanced. This is impossible, Miller whispered. Unfortunately, Captain, I must inform you that I bring grave news, Atlas continued. The Defiant was sent back through time as humanity's last resort. A temporal rift was created as a desperate measure in a war we were losing. Walker's mind raced. Where is your crew? Silence filled the channel for a moment. There is no crew, Captain. They all perished in the final battle that sent me back. The captain's last order was to activate the temporal drive. His name was Admiral James Walker. A chill ran down Walker's spine. That's my name. Yes, you are his ancestor. That is why I recognized you, and why I am authorized to communicate with you directly. Over the next hour, Atlas explained. The Defiant was the last surviving warship of humanity's fleet, sent back through time to warn Earth of an impending invasion by a species known as the Harvesters. In the original timeline, Earth was caught unprepared. Billions died in the first wave. This is a lot to process, Walker said, running a hand through his short brown hair. I have data packets ready to transmit that will help verify my claims. Atlas replied. Star charts showing celestial movements that your astronomers can confirm. Technical specifications that your scientists can examine. Strategic information about Earth's current political landscape that no outside force could know. General Thompson arrived at the control center as data began flooding in. Scientists were called. Experts assembled. The world's leaders connected via secure video. I need to see this ship, Walker said finally. If what you're saying is true, we need to understand what we're dealing with. 6 hours later, after heated debate among world powers, permission was granted. Captain Walker and a small team would board the Defiant to verify Atlas' claims. The shuttle ride-up was tense. Walker sat with Miller and 3 others. Dr. Tom Harris, a physicist, Major Robert Green, a weapons specialist, and Dr. Lisa Jones, an AI expert. They approached the massive ship with a mixture of fear and awe. Look at the size of it, Green whispered as they drew closer. The Defiant dwarfed their shuttle, its hull scarred with what looked like battle damage. A bay door opened smoothly, and Atlas guided them in. Welcome aboard, Captain Walker. The interior was pristine despite the external damage. Gleaming metal corridors lit with soft blue light. The air was clean, but had a distinct smell, like electronics and something else Walker couldn't identify. This way to the bridge, Atlas directed them. His voice seemed to come from everywhere. What they found inside the ship confirmed Atlas's story, technology beyond anything they had seen. Weapons systems capable of destroying entire fleets, and most chilling of all, a memorial wall with thousands of names, the fallen crew of the Defiant and other ships. Walker found his name, or rather, his descendant's name, at the bottom of the list. Admiral James Walker, last captain of the Defiant. Now do you believe me? Atlas asked as they stood before the memorial. Walker nodded slowly. I believe you. But the question is, what do we do now? Atlas's voice seemed to grow stronger. We prepare, Captain. The Harvesters will arrive in 6 months. In my timeline, humanity was caught unprepared and nearly wiped out. This time, we have the advantage. We know they're coming. And we have the Defiant. Walker looked around at the emptied advanced ship, a ghost from the future sent back to change history. And it's ready to fight for humanity. Atlas finished. Walker straightened his shoulders, feeling the weight of what was to come. Then we better get started. 3 days after the Defiant's arrival, Captain Walker stood before the United Nations Security Council. The room was packed with world leaders, military officials, and scientists. All eyes were on him as he prepared to deliver the most important briefing in human history. "Ladies and gentlemen," Walker began, his voice steady despite his nerves. "What I'm about to tell you will sound impossible, but I've seen the proof with my own eyes." On the large screen behind him, images of the Defiant appeared. The assembled leaders murmured as Walker explained what Atlas had revealed. In 6 months, Earth will face an invasion by an alien species known as the Harvesters. According to Atlas, in the original timeline, we were unprepared. Billions died in the first attack. The room erupted in chaos. Questions flew from all directions. "How do we know this isn't a trick?" demanded the Russian president. "What proof do we have that this ship is really from our future?" asked another leader. Walker nodded to Dr. Tom Harris, who stepped forward with a tablet. "The Defiant has provided us with star charts showing celestial movements that our astronomers have confirmed are accurate predictions. We've also received technical specifications that our best scientists have examined. The technology is clearly human in design, but centuries ahead of our capabilities. And most convincingly," Walker added, "Atlas has detailed knowledge of Earth's current political landscape, military installations, and even private conversations between world leaders that no outside force could possibly know." The Chinese premier stood up. "This ship claims to be from a united Earth government. Are we to believe that in the future, all nations fall under one rule?" Walker shook his head. Atlas explained that the United Earth Defense Force was formed in response to the Harvester threat. It wasn't a single government, but a joint military command, much like NATO, but global. Individual nations maintained their sovereignty, but contributed to a unified defense. For hours, the debate raged. Some believed Atlas's warning, while others remained skeptical. The American president finally raised her hand for silence. "Captain Walker, what does this Atlas want from us?" "It wants to help us prepare, Madam President. The Defiant contains weapons, shields, and propulsion systems far beyond our current technology. Atlas is offering to share this technology with us, so we can be ready when the Harvesters arrive." "And in return?" asked the French president. Walker met his gaze. "Nothing. According to Atlas, the Defiant was sent back with one mission, to save humanity from extinction. There are no conditions." After another hour of questions, the council agreed to form an international team to investigate the Defiant further. Walker would lead the team, with scientists and military experts from various nations. Back aboard the Defiant, Walker and his new team gathered on the bridge. The ship was massive, with corridors that seemed to stretch for miles and technology that looked like magic to their eyes. "Atlas," Walker called, "we need to understand exactly what we're facing. Tell us about the Harvesters." A holographic display activated in the center of the bridge. A three-dimensional image of an alien ship appeared, organic-looking, with curves and tentacle-like appendages unlike the sharp angles of human design. "The Harvesters are not their real name," Atlas explained. "Their actual name is unpronounceable to humans. They were dubbed Harvesters because their primary goal is resource extraction. They strip planets of valuable minerals and biological material, caring nothing for the indigenous life forms." The hologram shifted to show alien creatures, tall, spindly beings with 4 arms and skin that seemed to shimmer with an oily iridescence. They are technologically advanced, particularly in biological engineering and energy weapons. In the original timeline, Earth's first contact with them was their attack on major cities. No warning, no demands. Dr. Lisa Jones, the AI expert, stepped forward. "Why Earth? There must be uninhabited planets with resources they could take." "There are," Atlas confirmed. But the harvesters seek more than just physical resources. They also harvest data, knowledge, and what you might call cultural artifacts. Advanced civilizations are particularly valuable to them. Major Green frowned. So they're not just killers, they're thieves too. An accurate assessment, Major. Walker studied the alien images carefully. In your timeline, how did we fight them? Poorly, at first. Atlas admitted. Earth lost nearly 2 billion people in the first month. Conventional weapons were ineffective against their shields. It took 3 years to develop technology that could penetrate their defenses, and by then, much of Earth was in ruins. The team fell silent, contemplating the horror of what Atlas described. But this time will be different, Atlas continued. The Defiant carries all the technological advances humanity developed over 30 years of war. Weapons that can penetrate harvester shields. Defense systems that can withstand their attacks. And tactical data on their strategies and weaknesses. Lieutenant Miller had been quiet until now. Atlas, why didn't the people in your time just stop the harvesters from ever reaching Earth? With time travel technology, couldn't they have gone back further and destroyed the harvesters' homeworld? An excellent question, Atlas replied. The temporal rift was not a control technology. It was a desperate final measure, created by overloading the Defiant's experimental dry systems. We had no way to choose exactly when or where the ship would emerge. We were fortunate to arrive only 300 years in the past, and close enough to Earth to make contact. For the next several days, the team lived aboard the Defiant, learning everything they could. Walker spent hours with Atlas, reviewing battle tactics and ship operations. The others studied the advanced technology, preparing to share what they learned with scientists on Earth. On the 5th day, as Walker was reviewing weapon systems with Major Green, Atlas interrupted. Captain, I'm receiving a transmission from Earth. The Security Council has reached a decision. The main screen activated, showing the face of General Thompson. Captain Walker, the Council has voted. We are accepting Atlas's offer of assistance. You are hereby appointed commander of the Defiant, with authority to recruit a crew and begin defense preparations immediately. Walker straightened his shoulders, feeling both pride and fear. Understood, sir. After the transmission ended, Walker turned to his team. Well, you heard the man. We have a ship to learn and a planet to save. Major Green grinned. And only 6 months to do it. Then we better get started, Walker replied. As he looked around at the advanced bridge of the most powerful warship humanity had ever seen, he felt a strange sense of destiny. Atlas, let's make sure history doesn't repeat itself. That, said the AI, is precisely why I'm here, Captain. 2 months after the Defiant's arrival, Earth had changed. Nations that once pointed weapons at each other now work together against a common enemy. In every major country, factories ran day and night, building new defense systems based on Atlas's designs. Captain Walker stood on the bridge of the Defiant, watching his new crew work at their stations. From 200 candidates worldwide, he had selected 50 of the best pilots, engineers, and soldiers. They learned quickly, but time was running short. Status report, Walker called out. Lieutenant Miller, now his second in command, looked up from her console. Weapon systems at 82% operational capacity, sir. Engine efficiency improved to 76% after the latest adjustments. The crew is making good progress with the targeting systems. Walker nodded. Though the Defiant was designed to run with a crew of 300, Atlas could automate many systems. Still, human operators were needed for complex decisions and repairs. And the planetary defense grid? Walker asked. Construction is on schedule in North America and Asia, Miller replied. Europe is 2 weeks behind, and the Southern Hemisphere installations just broke ground. Walker frowned. The defense grid was a network of ground-based energy weapons designed to target harvester ships in orbit. Atlas had provided the plans, but building them required resources and cooperation that Earth was struggling to provide. Captain, Atlas's voice came through the ship's speakers. General Thompson is requesting your presence at the Security Council meeting today. The subject is urgent. Walker sighed. More political battles. Every nation wanted the Defiant's technology, but few trusted others to have it. Lieutenant Miller, you have the bridge. I'll take a shuttle down to New York. 3 hours later, Walker sat at a large table surrounded by military leaders from around the world. General Thompson was speaking, his face grim. Resources are stretched thin. We're building as fast as we can, but some nations are holding back, keeping their best scientists and materials for their own defenses. The Russian general pounded his fist on the table. Because we cannot trust that America will protect Moscow as well as it protects New York. Each nation must secure its own borders first. Walker had heard these arguments many times over the past weeks. He stood up, silencing the room. With all due respect, generals, this is exactly what doomed Earth in the original timeline. Atlas has shown us the records. When the harvesters attacked, each nation fought alone, and each nation fell, one by one. He activated a holographic display showing the global defense plan. The Defiant can't be everywhere at once. The planetary grid is designed as a unified system. If there are gaps in the coverage, the harvesters will find them. General Thompson nodded in agreement. Captain Walker is right. We need full cooperation. The meeting continued for hours, with slow progress. Walker was about to suggest a break when an aide rushed in and whispered something to General Thompson. The general's face turned pale. "Gentlemen, we have a situation," Thompson announced. General Marcus Reed of the North American Command has just released a statement claiming that the Defiant is a hoax, a weapon created by rival powers to trick us into lowering our defenses. Walker stared in disbelief. "What? That's ridiculous." Thompson shook his head. Reed has significant support in the military and government. He's demanding that the Defiant be placed under his direct control for proper investigation. Walker felt a cold anger building inside him. That would set us back weeks, maybe months. We don't have time for this. The Chinese general leaned forward. Perhaps it would be wise to show more proof to the public. The Defiant has remained in orbit, visible only to those with clearance. Walker considered this. A demonstration, you mean? Yes, something visible to the world. Later that day, Walker returned to the Defiant with a new plan. Atlas listened as Walker explained the political situation. "I anticipated such resistance," Atlas said. "In my timeline, similar distrust delayed preparations until it was too late." "Then let's not repeat that mistake," Walker replied. "Can the Defiant safely enter Earth's atmosphere? I want to make a visible demonstration of its capabilities." "Yes, Captain. The ship is designed for atmospheric operation." The next day, the Defiant descended slowly through the clouds above the United Nations headquarters in New York. Its massive hull gleamed in the sunlight as it hovered 1,000 feet above the city. People stopped in the streets, pointing upward in awe and fear. Inside the General Assembly, Walker addressed the gathered representatives of every nation. Behind him, a massive screen showed the Defiant floating above the city. This ship came from a future where humanity failed to unite against the harvester threat, Walker said. "We have a chance to write a different history, but only if we work together." He activated another screen, showing detailed scans of the incoming harvester fleet that Atlas had provided. "They are coming. Not for negotiation, not for peaceful contact, but to take everything we have. Our only hope is to be ready." The demonstration worked. Public opinion shifted strongly in favor of the United Defense Plan. Even General Reed was forced to publicly support the effort, though Walker knew he still had his suspicions. Over the next few weeks, work accelerated. Atlas shared more technology with Earth's scientists. New weapons were developed. The defense grid took shape around the planet. On the Defiant, Walker's crew trained hard. They ran battle simulations, learning to operate the advanced systems under Atlas's guidance. The ship's original battle damage was repaired, its weapons restored to full capacity. But not everyone was convinced. In his private office at North American Command, General Reed met with a small group of loyal officers. "The timing is too convenient," Reed told them. "An alien threat appears just as this mysterious ship arrives, and it just happens to require a global military under unified command." "What are you suggesting, sir?" one of the officers asked. Reed's eyes narrowed. "I'm suggesting we've been played. This is the oldest trick in the book. Create a threat, then offer protection, but only if we surrender our sovereignty." He pulled up classified files on his computer. "I've been investigating Captain Walker, his career, his connections, and I found some interesting patterns." Reed pointed to a map showing the proposed locations for the defense grid installations. "Notice anything unusual about this deployment? The heaviest concentrations are near our most sensitive military installations." The officers exchanged worried glances. "I don't know who's really behind the Defiant," Reed continued, "but I do know we can't trust it, or Walker. We need to take control of that ship before it's too late." Meanwhile, on the Defiant, Walker stood in the observation deck, looking down at Earth. 4 months had passed since the ship's arrival. 2 months remained before the harvesters were due to arrive. "Will we be ready, Atlas?" he asked quietly. "Preparation is at 67% of optimal levels," Atlas replied. "The odds of successfully repelling the first wave have improved from 12% to 58%. Walker nodded. "Better than the original timeline, but still not good enough. We need more time." "Unfortunately, Captain," Atlas said, "time is the one resource I cannot provide." Captain Walker was in the middle of a training exercise when the alarm sounded throughout the Defiant. Red lights flashed on every deck as the crew rushed to battle stations. "Atlas, report," Walker shouted as he ran onto the bridge. 5 unknown vessels have entered the solar system," Atlas responded. "They bypassed our outer sensor grid. Current position: just beyond Mars orbit." Walker's heart sank. "The harvesters? They're a month early." "Negative, Captain. The ship design does not match harvester vessels from my database. However, their energy signatures show similarities to harvester technology." Lieutenant Miller arrived on the bridge, her face pale. "Sir, Earth Command is asking for orders. Do we engage?" Walker studied the tactical display. The 5 ships were moving slowly, cautiously. Not an attack formation. "No. Hold positions. Let's see what they do." He turned to his communications officer. "Any transmissions?" "None detected, sir." Atlas spoke again. "Captain, I have completed my analysis. These ships appear to be harvester scout vessels, but there are significant variations from my historical records. They are smaller and less heavily armed than expected." Walker frowned. "Could your records be wrong?" "Possible, but unlikely. It appears that something has changed in the timeline. For 24 hours, the scout ships moved through the outer solar system, seemingly conducting a survey. They made no aggressive moves and ignored all attempts at communication. In the Defiance conference room, Walker met with his senior officers and Atlas. "They're definitely mapping our defenses," Major Green said. "Looking for weaknesses before the main fleet arrives." Dr. Harris nodded. "If they're scouts, why not engage them now? Destroy them before they can report back." Walker turned to Atlas. "What do you think?" The eye was silent for a moment. "This behavior doesn't match harvester tactics from my timeline. In our history, there were no scouts. The main fleet arrived without warning and attacked immediately." "So what's different?" Walker asked. "Unknown, but it suggests our presence has already altered the timeline." Walker made his decision. "We'll shadow them, but not engage unless they make a hostile move. I want to learn more about what we're facing." The next day, one of the scout ships broke formation and moved toward Earth. Walker ordered the Defiant to intercept. "We'll position ourselves between Earth and the scout," he told his crew. "If it makes any aggressive move, we take it out." As the Defiant moved to intercept, the scout ship suddenly changed course, heading directly toward them. "It's scanning us," Lieutenant Miller reported. Heavy energy readings focused on our hull. Shields up, Walker ordered. Weapons on standby. The scout ship came to a stop 5 kilometers from the Defiant. For several minutes, nothing happened. Then Miller's console beeped. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission." Walker straightened in his chair. On screen. The main screen flickered, then showed the interior of the alien ship. A tall, slender figure stood there, its skin shimmering with an oily iridescence, just as Atlas had described. But instead of the aggressive stance Walker expected, the alien's 4 arms were held in what seemed like a non-threatening posture. It spoke, its voice translated by Atlas into English. "Human vessel, we seek dialogue. We are not the vanguard you fear." Walker glanced at Atlas's holographic display. "Is this a trick?" "Unknown, Captain. The Harvesters never attempted communication in our timeline." Walker turned back to the screen. "I am Captain James Walker of the Earth Defense Force. Identify yourselves." "We are the Tory. You know us as Harvesters, a name given by those who did not understand our purpose. We come seeking alliance, not conquest." Walker's officers exchanged shocked glances. This was nothing like what Atlas had predicted. Alliance against what? Walker asked. "The Void," the alien replied. "They pursue us. They pursue all life. We search for allies strong enough to stand with us." Before Walker could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. Multiple ships appearing at the edge of the system. Miller shouted. "Energy signatures match." "What the hell?" "Sir, they're matching signatures from the Defiance database marked as Omega-level threat." Atlas's voice took on a new urgency. "Captain, those are Void vessels. In my timeline, they appeared 2 years after the initial Harvester invasion. They are the true enemy, the force that ultimately destroyed Earth after weakening both humans and Harvesters." Walker stared at the tactical display in shock. "You never mentioned them before." The primary mission was to prepare Earth for the Harvester threat. The Void was classified as a secondary concern due to the timeline of events. The alien on screen spoke again. "You have knowledge of the Void. How is this possible?" Before Walker could respond, a new alarm sounded. "Sir," Miller cried out, "we've got internal security breaches on decks 5 through 9. Armed personnel have boarded from Earth shuttles." General Reed's face appeared on a secondary screen. "Captain Walker, by authority of Earth Command, I am taking control of this vessel. The alien deception ends now." Walker couldn't believe what was happening. "Reed, you fool. We're about to face a real threat. Save your lies, Walker. Security teams, secure the bridge." As Reed's forces fought their way through the ship, the Defiant sensors detected the first wave of Void ships entering the solar system. The Tory scout retreated to rejoin its fleet. Walker turned to his officers. "We need to repel Reed's forces and prepare for battle. The Void ships will reach Earth in less than 6 hours." "Sir," Miller said quietly, "General Reed has 40 elite soldiers aboard. We have 20 crew members trained for combat." "The odds." "The odds don't matter." Walker cut her off. "If we lose the Defiant, Earth is doomed." For the next hour, Walker's loyal crew fought to maintain control of the ship. They secured the bridge and engine room, but Reed's forces controlled the main weapon systems and had damaged critical power relays. In the midst of the chaos, Walker received another communication from the Tory. "Human Captain, the Void approaches faster than expected. We number only 5 vessels. Without your alliance, we cannot protect this system." Walker made a desperate decision. "Atlas, open a channel to all Earth Defense Forces and the Tory fleet." When the channel opened, Walker spoke clearly, hoping his words would cut through the fear and distrust that threatened everything. "This is Captain Walker of the Defiant. Earth faces an enemy greater than we imagined. The vessels approaching are called the Void. They are planet killers that destroyed Earth and the timeline the Defiant comes from. The aliens we called Harvesters are actually fleeing from this threat." He took a deep breath. I propose an immediate alliance between Earth forces, the Defiant and the Tory fleet. Our only hope is to fight together." As Walker waited for a response, the Defiant's damaged systems flickered. On the main screen, the first void ships became visible, massive black shapes that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The true enemy had arrived, and the Defiant was crippled from within. The bridge of the Defiant was in chaos. Half the control panels were damaged from Reed's attack. Lieutenant Miller worked frantically to restore weapon systems, while Major Green led the defense against Reed's remaining forces. "Status report," Walker demanded, wiping blood from a cut above his eye. "Main weapons still offline," Miller replied. "Shields at 40% capacity, engine power fluctuating." On the main screen, the void ships moved closer to Earth. 5 massive black vessels that seemed to swallow the stars behind them. The Tory scout ships took defensive positions nearby, clearly waiting for Walker's response. "Sir," Miller called out, "General Thompson is hailing us from Earth Command." Walker nodded, and Thompson's worried face appeared on screen. "Captain, what in God's name is happening up there?" "We're reading multiple alien vessels and weapons fire aboard the Defiant." Walker quickly explained about Reed's attack and the new threat from the void. "The aliens we prepared to fight are actually refugees," he finished. "The real enemy is much worse, and they've just arrived." Thompson's face paled. "Reed told the Security Council you were compromised, working with the aliens. Now you're saying we should ally with them. It's our only chance, sir. The defense grid isn't ready, and the Defiant is damaged. We need the Tory." After a tense silence, Thompson nodded. "I'll convince the Council. In the meantime, regain control of your ship, Captain." Walker turned to his tactical officer. "Where's Reed now?" "Weapon Control Center, Deck 7. He has 15 men with him." Walker made his decision. "I'm going down there myself. Miller, you have the bridge. Try to get those weapons back online." As Walker and a small team made their way through the damaged corridors of the Defiant, Atlas spoke through his personal communicator. "Captain, I must inform you of something critical. The Defiant contains technology that was not fully explained to you." Walker ducked as sparks flew from a damaged panel. "What technology?" "The Defiant's core contains a consciousness matrix, a digital storage of thousands of human minds from the future. Scientists, soldiers, leaders, all volunteered to have their consciousness preserved before death." Walker stopped in his tracks. "You're saying there are people stored in the ship's computers?" "In a manner of speaking, yes. It was humanity's final effort to preserve knowledge if Earth fell. I can access their combined expertise to repair the ship and implement modifications even the future hadn't attempted." "Why tell me this now?" "Because activating the matrix will require significant power currently needed for weapons and shields. And because once activated, it cannot be deactivated without losing the stored minds." Walker started moving again, faster now. "Let's deal with Reed first, then make that decision." They'd reached the entrance to the Weapons Control Center. Through the small window in the door, Walker could see Reed and his men, working to override the Defiant systems. "General Reed," Walker called through the communication panel. "The void ships are approaching Earth. We need to restore the Defiant's weapons immediately." Reed's face appeared on the small screen by the door. "Nice try, Walker. There are no void ships. This is all part of your deception. Look at the sensor data. The Tory scouts are taking defensive positions to protect Earth, not attack it." "More lies," Reed snarled. "I'm taking this ship back to Earth under proper command." Suddenly, the ship shuddered violently. Alarms blared throughout all decks. "Captain," Miller's voice came through Walker's communicator. "The void ships have opened fire. They've destroyed 2 Tory vessels and are targeting Earth's defense grid." Walker could see the change in Reed's expression as he received the same information. "Now do you believe me?" Walker demanded. Reed's face showed conflict, then resignation. He opened the door. "I'm still not sure I trust you, Walker, but I know what weapons fire feels like. Let's save this discussion for after we survive. Together, Walker and Reed's teams worked to restore the Defiant's weapon systems. Within minutes, power flowed back to the main guns. But it wasn't enough. Back on the bridge, Walker watched as Earth's hastily prepared defenses fired at the approaching void ships. The energy blasts seemed to be absorbed by the black hulls with minimal effect. "Our weapons aren't strong enough," Miller said, her voice tight with fear. Walker turned to Atlas. "Activate the consciousness matrix. We need every advantage we can get." "Understood, Captain." Diverting power now. The lights on the bridge dimmed momentarily. Then the holographic display expanded, showing not just Atlas's usual interface, but dozens of new data streams. The ship's systems began to reconfigure themselves as the combined knowledge of thousands of future minds went to work. "Connection established," Atlas announced, its voice somehow deeper, more complex, implementing emergency modifications to weapons and shields. The Defiant's engines roared to life with new power. The weapon systems reconfigured to emit a different energy signature. "What's happening?" Reed asked, staring at the displays. "The best minds of future Earth are helping us," Walker replied. "Atlas, are we ready to engage?" "Yes, Captain. We have modified the main cannon to emit a frequency that should disrupt the void ship's energy absorption." Walker opened a channel to the Tory fleet. "This is Captain Walker. We have weapons that may be effective against the void. Follow our lead and target where we fire." The Defiant moved forward, positioning itself between Earth and the approaching void ships. Its main cannon fired, a brilliant beam of blue-white energy that struck the lead void ship. Unlike earlier attacks, this beam didn't disappear into the black hull. Instead, it created a visible rupture, a glowing wound in the darkness. "It's working," Miller shouted. The remaining Tauri ships quickly adjusted their weapons to match the Defiant's frequency and concentrated fire on the damaged area. The void ship shuddered, then broke apart in a silent explosion. But the victory was short-lived. The other 4 void ships changed formation and unleashed a barrage of energy that hammered the Defiant's shields. "Shields failing," Atlas reported. "Hull breach on decks 3 and 4. The Matrix cannot sustain both offense and defense." Walker gripped his chair as the ship shook violently. "Can we destroy them all?" "Negative, Captain. Our modifications will not work a second time. They are adapting." Reed stepped forward. "Then we need a new strategy." For the next hour, the battle raged across Earth's orbit. The Defiant and the Tory ships fought desperately, managing to destroy 2 more void vessels, but taking heavy damage in return. Earth's defense grid provided supporting fire, but it wasn't enough. "Captain," Atlas said quietly as the ship shuddered from another hit, "there is one final option." Walker looked up, seeing the determination in Atlas's holographic face. "The temporal drive can be reactivated. Not to travel through time, but to create a localized temporal anomaly." "A trap," Walker realized. "Yes, if positioned correctly, it could ensnare the remaining void ships in a pocket of frozen time. But it would require the Defiant to be at the center of the anomaly." Walker understood immediately. "A suicide mission. I would remain functional long enough to activate the drive. The consciousness matrix would be lost, but Earth would be saved." Walker looked around at his crew, humans from present and future, fighting together for Earth's survival. Then he looked at the tactical display showing the void ships approaching Earth. "There has to be another way," he insisted. "There wasn't in my timeline," Atlas replied. "But perhaps that's why I was sent back, to make the sacrifice that saves everyone this time." Walker made the hardest decision of his life. Evacuate all personnel to the escape pods. Set course for the space between the void ships. As the crew scrambled to evacuate, Walker remained on the bridge with Atlas. "You should go too, Captain," Atlas said. Walker shook his head. "No, someone needs to make sure this works. Besides, my future self sent you back. It's only fitting that I see this through. As the Defiant accelerated toward the void ships, Walker felt a strange sense of peace. The escape pods launched, carrying Reed, Miller, and the others to safety. Temporal drive activating, Atlas announced. It has been an honor serving with you, Captain Walker. The honor was mine, Atlas, Walker replied. The Defiant glowed with brilliant light as the temporal drive engaged. A sphere of energy expanded from the ship, enveloping the two remaining void vessels. Time itself seemed to slow, and then stop within the sphere, freezing the ships in place. On Earth, people watched as a new star briefly appeared in the sky, then faded, leaving behind a shimmering distortion in space where 3 ships were now frozen for eternity. 3 months later, Lieutenant Miller, now Captain Miller, stood on the bridge of Earth's first new defensive ship, built with Tory help and using technology saved from the Defiant. Captain, her communications officer called. We're picking up a signal. It's faint, but it's coming from the temporal anomaly. Miller rushed to the console, hardly daring to hope. On the screen, a simple